How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. We're on to day 2 of the NFL draft. Day 1 feels a lot like football Sunday coming out of week 1 in Cincinnati, out of NFL season in general, because you get into Monday, kind of overreaction Monday. Yesterday was a little bit overreaction, Monday action. Now we're going into day 2. Let's take a step back. Let's take a little bit of time to reflect. Let's take a little bit of time to think about this Bengals draft pick, because right out the bat, when you see Shemar Stewart come across that board, when Mike Green, when Jahad Campbell, Ezra Raku, there's some guy, Will Johnson, there's some guys out there on the board when the Bengals pick. When you see those guys there and the Bengals go with Mr. 4.5 sacks in college football, knowing Trey's out the door shortly, knowing you have nobody besides him that can pressure the quarterback, knowing how important that is, you go with a guy who has 4.5 sacks. And of course, understandably, as fans, rightfully so, a little bit discombobulated, could feel better about things. But let's talk about more than the stats. Let's talk about the positives comes out of this. At the end of the day, this man's a Cincinnati Bengal. It doesn't matter how much we complain. It doesn't matter how much we look at the stats. It doesn't talk how to show the production. This man's a Cincinnati Bengal. We have two choices. We can dwell on that, or we can say, look at all of the good things this guy could potentially do for this franchise and how he could change it for the better. We're going to start with the 2.43 seconds it took for this man to get pressure on the quarterback last season. Number 1 in the FBS. Who is this team man going to have to go up against? Coming into the NFL, I know a lot of people say he couldn't get home against college teams, but he's going to get home against Lamar. Remember what conference this man played in? The SEC, one of the most powerful conferences in the league, one of the college football, one of the most pronounced, most dominant leagues in the trenches. He's going up against quality, top tier talent consistently. And when you think about 2.43 seconds, is he going to do that in the NFL? Probably not. But if he can do a little bit better, if that's his ceiling. One of the best pass rushers from a time perspective just can't finish. I love it. You know, when guys like Lamar and Josh Allen have got 3 seconds back there to throw the football, and you can put this man in their face, game changer. And that is huge. Huge, huge, huge. We've seen in the past. Lamar Jackson makes mistakes. We talked about the MVP race. The reason we were so pro Joe Burrow should have won the MVP is because nobody in the NFL right now can do what Joe Burrow does under pressure. If you put any of those quarterbacks behind this offensive line, they would struggle. They would not have had an MVP season. If you put Joe Burrow behind them offensive lines, he would have diced up every team in the league, because time in the pocket is everything. The Bengals would go on to face Jalen Hurts last season. They go on to face Lamar Jackson. Heck, you could throw in Josh Allen if you want to talk about the last 2 seasons. The last 2 seasons in those 6 games, Trey Hendrickson has sacked those quarterbacks a combined 1 time in those 6 games. Not an impact. You need guys that can be an impact. I love Trey Hendrickson. Do not get me wrong. But, when you kind of put things into perspective of, hey, those are the guys we need to beat. We need guys that can make an impact there. And we need guys that can, more importantly, complement Trey. I mean, it's easy to shut down Trey when he's the only horse on the field. Got to bring somebody else out there that can, so he ain't getting double teamed the whole time. So they got somebody else to worry about. And this guy with that sort of power, that size, sort of that sort of power. Did we forget about the positive of 6'6", 290? You watch this guy play, he sure as heck don't look 290. That's incredible. This man is an athletic phenomenon. A 10 RAS score. We brought up Josh. We brought up Jalen. We brought up Lamar because they are mobile quarterbacks that, hey, they don't get sacked a lot in general. The greats don't sack them because they have time to throw the football, because they have the physical mobility and ability to escape the pocket. Which is why, hey, maybe the sacks aren't as important as we think. In some situations, they're game changers. You want the sack. Do not get me wrong. You want the sack every single time you can get it. 15 sacks is far and away better than 8. 45 pressures is better than 20, though. It depends who you ask, really, because again, you sack the quarterback and you drop him back 8 yards, 5 yards, it can stall a drive out. You're pushing him back 5 yards, it's 3rd and 15 now, or it's 3rd and 18 instead of 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 6 or whatever. Definitely makes a difference. You give that quarterback time to throw the football, anything could have happened, could have completed the pass too, not to mention. Then you bring a guy in, though, nonetheless, with this sort of athletic ability against those players that are fast, they're mobile, and you say, oh, okay, we're going to counter what you're trying to do, what you're trying to consistently beat us with a guy that we believe has the physical traits and ability to develop into a guy that can be the counterpunch. That is so important in the draft. We see it every year in this AFC North. It feels like these guys, these teams are drafting the counterpunch. They see what this division wants to do, and they draft the counterpunch. The Steelers do such a great job of it. The Ravens do such a great job of it. They know how important winning in the trenches is. They see these offensive lines and say, we got to get us a pass rusher. We are worried about playing that smash mouth defense. Bengals trying to do that. I get the whole, it's a project. I get how he's got to grow and develop. But when you look at a guy with this sort of ability, hey, 23% pass rush win rate last season in true pass sets, by the way, pretty solid. When you look at a guy, though, with his abilities, he's got to learn how to finish. He's got to learn how to tackle. That's a big thing. We're not talking about the negatives. We touched on it. But the positive is he is now going to play under Al Golden, who we believe is a lot better at developing talent. And if he can develop, he's got the opportunity to develop the guy. And then this is what's the cool thing about Shemar Stewart is, it kind of reminds me of the Bill Belichick dynasty days where he would just pluck guys out of the draft and people were like, why would you do that? Pretty common practice over there in New England. But he was looking at these guys with the traits, the mindset, the tools that he felt like he could coach up and develop into stars. And that defense was phenomenal consistently. Shemar Stewart is one of those guys that we've heard a lot of people talk about and taught about his effort. He's not finishing the play, but his effort in the plays is there. His effort to want to grow, his effort to want to be better, his effort to want to be a fantastic football player is there. That is ever so important. Because some of these guys, these athletic freaks, they don't come in with that mindset. They're just gifted. They feel like they can win with their gifted abilities. And that was always the concern with the 10 RAS score. Back in the day, a higher AS score was like, I don't care how he does in a combine. That was probably more pronounced to the wide receiver position because you got guys like Henry Ruggs. You got guys like John Ross that just, they stick out where it's like they were such athletic freaks that never transitioned. But as far as the defensive end position is concerned, a lot more success rate coming out of that position, out of guys having long, illustrious careers. The percentage is much higher. You got Trayvon Walker, you got Danielle Hunter. The list can go on. I think about Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons kind of touched on Shemar here and said he loves him. But he's like, oh, my best season, I had 5 sacks in college. And, you're highly praised a guy like Stewart. When you get that kind of praise from a playmaker like Micah Parsons, you love it. And overall, I get it. I can't stress it enough. I get it. I went into the draft thinking the same thing everybody else did. We want to win right now. I want the most put together, well-rounded football player that can come in right now and make an impact. But you know what can also be just as good is if you can draft the one guy late in the draft that can turn around and not just make an impact, but he can be a game wrecker, be a game changer. It is very, very difficult. If you're going to have Joe Burrow on his football team, you will not draft a game wrecker unless you're willing to take a chance on a guy in the draft who's quote unquote risky. Because the guarantees go number 1. The guarantees go number 2. Aiden Hutchinson, Myles Garrett do not fall to 17. There is going to be some sort of baggage on that player exiting the draft. Your job as a scouting department, your job as a team is to find the players who you look at the bag and say, hey, we can fix this and we can't fix this. And you look at the guys, you understand their mindset, you understand their physical abilities, you understand what they're capable of on the field, the film. You do not become a box score scouter. And then you transform those guys into legends. Will that be Shemar Stewart? I don't know. None of us know. We got time. It might be a slow year 1, But if year 2, year 3, year 4, this guy busts out, this guy breaks out. First of all, Trey's out the door. You replace Trey, but maybe with somebody better because this guy's a run stopper. This guy's a run stopper. He can play every down. And now you add in the ability to rush the passer. Now we're talking more of a defensive player of the year candidate year in and year out because of his ability to stop the run. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about, actually. Al Golden and his Notre Dame Fighting Irish last season, because I know we worry about the statistics with the stats and the sacks, had 17 different players, 17 different players record a sack last season. 17! By the way, you could only field 11. Consistently finding ways to get pressure on the quarterback with different players. Something I think is very important we don't talk about a lot. It was the scheme. It was the disguise. I don't remember. The only thing I remember of Lou Anarumo was his rush 3, drop 8. Confusion of the quarterback that, found a way to stop Patrick Mahomes. Did that stop everybody? No. Sure did stop Patrick Mahomes coming in. It sure did work with the right personnel. But as far as, hey, let's double A gap blitz, Geno in the middle, Walter Nolan in the middle, good freaking luck. Good luck stopping 3 pass rushers up the middle when we have an all-pro right here. We have an all-pro right here. We're going to bring pressure over here you don't know about. And I think Al Golden has that ability to dial up different blitz packages, to dial up different pressures to where, again, I think one thing that goes so severely underlooked is the scheming. Remember even Carlos Dunlap when when Zach Taylor came over and the production just fell off a cliff. He went to Seattle and produced again, even at his age. The ability to draw plays up that free up your pass rushers, that put them in favorable matchups, is a big deal that goes kind of unpronounced quite often. So if you can find ways to do that, you find ways to get pressure from your linebackers, your CBs, you find ways to, whatever you're going to do, scheme things up to get to the quarterback. We can see this man's production not only go up, but we can also see him be kind of like a decoy where, hey, we know this guy can pressure, he can't finish. So what are we going to do? We're going to kind of, we're going to do a little swing action here, bring somebody else up here delayed behind him. We know he's going to bull rush this quarterback and draw some things up. Somebody else is going to clean up business, but that pressure he's going to do, bring in, push the line back, push the pocket back. We'll figure it out. Big part of developing a team that you get the most out of everybody is going to be, we're asking a lot out of Al. We're asking a lot out of this defensive coaching staff as a whole. But that's what's going to have to happen. That's what you have to depend on for developing players. The crazy thing is, we can talk all about the stats all you want. Chase Young went. We know where Chase Young went. We know the numbers. A lot of talk about him winning the Heisman. If it wasn't for Joe Burrow, he probably would have won the Heisman. What happened to Chase Young? The reason Mike Green falls, the reason James Pierce falls. Why are these guys falling with these great numbers? Clearly, teams are seeing other red flags past the box score on the tape. Gotta keep it in mind. Gotta stay positive. Nonetheless, love y'all's thoughts. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.